Good morning, students. I'm Dr. Ablash, Assistant Professor, Department of Orthopedics. Today we are going to discuss about fractures of distal and radius. The distal and radius was first explained by Couture in 1783 and later by Abraham Coley, Dupuytren, Barton, and Smith. Distal radius fractures occurs through the distal metaphysis of the radius. It may frequently involve articular surface and ulnar stagger. The most common etiology will be fall on outstretched hand. That will be the extension of the carpus and the axial loading along the distal radius. Fracture of distal radius are classified based on intra-articular involvement, degree of combination, displacements, volar and dorsal, involvement of distal radioulnar joint. Incident. Distal and radius fracture approximately counts of 16% of all fracture cases treated by orthopedic surgeons. The peak incident is 5 to 14 years in children and under 50-year males due to high velocity trauma and female over 40 years due to low velocity. Elderly, it's most commonly extra-articular, and for high velocity injuries, it will be intra-articular. The anatomy of the distal and radius, it will usually appear, the epiphysis of the distal radius usually appears at the first year. It grows in the lateral than the medial direction to form the radial styler. The three articular facets fuses at the age of 17 and in female it will be 19. Metaphysis is flared distally in both the AP and lateral plane with thinner cortical bone lying dorsally and radially. The significance of thinness of these cortices is that fracture typically collapse dorsolaterally. In anterior posterior plane, the strongest bone is found under the lunate facet of the radius. The line of force passes through this axis. The palmar ulnar corner is often referred to the keystone of the radius. It serves the attachment for the palmar distal radioulnar ligament and also for the radiolunate ligament. Displacement of this fragment is associated with palmar displacement of the corpus and also the loss of forearm rotation. Medial aspect of distal radius is triangular and presents an articular facets at the distal end, which is concave and is called sigmoid notch, which articulates with the head of distal ulna. The origin of triangular fibrocartilage complex attaches the distal border of the sigmoid fossa. This cartilage complex is the main stabilizer of the distal radioulnar joint. The dorsal aspect of the distal radius is narrower than the volar aspect. The most prominent V-shaped crust, which is called as the Lister's tubercle. The axial loading, the radius bears the 80% of the load and the ulna bear 20% of the load. The extrinsic muscle, which are present around the distal end of the radius, plays an important role in closed reduction. The palmar extrinsic ligaments are attached to the distal radius and it is these ligaments which are related on the reduction component of the fracture. The radial column consists of the scaphoid fossa, the radial styler. Because of the radial inclination of 22 degrees, the impaction of the scaphoid on the articular surface results in the shear moment and the radial styler causing failure laterally at the radial cortex. The radial column therefore is best stabilized by buttressing the lateral cortex. The intermediate column consists of the lunate fossa and the sigmoid notch of the radius. The intermediate column may be considered the cornerstone of the radius because it is critical in both articular congruity and the distal radioulnar function. Failure of the intermediate column occurs as the result of impaction of lunate on the articular surface. with the dorsal comminution. The column is stabilized by direct buttress of the dorsal aspect of the radius. The ulnar column consists of ulnar styloid, but also should include the TFCC and the ulnocarpal ligaments. Diagnosis: the patient usually gives a history of fall on outstretched hand, and there will be swelling, ecchymosis, tenderness, visible deformity will be there. Adequate and accurate assessment of the neurovascular status should be performed. X-ray should be taken of the wrist in AP, lateral and oblique view. CT scan of the wrist can be done to know the intra-articular involvement and comminution. In an X-ray, we should note the palmar tilt. Normally, it will be 10 to 12 degrees, and the radial inclination 20 to 23 degrees. Ulnar variance is 0 to minus 2 mm. Radial length, normally it will be 10 to 12 mm, and the carpal alignment. Volar or palmar tilt, which can be appreciated in a lateral view. A line connecting the axis of the radius and the volar and dorsal lip, which gives the angle, and this will be lost in a distal radius fracture. Radial length is measured in an anterior posterior X-ray. The perpendicular line to the long axis of radius passing through the tip of the radial styloid, and the second line on the distal articular surface of the ulnar head should be measured to know the radial height. Ulnar variance, the measure of the radial shortening, should not be confused with the measurement of radial length. Ulnar variance is a vertical distance between the line parallel to the medial corner of the articular surface of radius and a line parallel to the most distal point of articular surface of the ulnar head, both of which are perpendicular to the long axis of the radius. Radial inclination on the AP view, the radius inclined towards the ulnar. This is the measurement angle drawn between the tip of the radial styloid and to the medial corner of the articular surface of the radius. On lateral view, line drawn through the long axis should pass the capitate. That will be the normal alignment. If it is not passing through the capital, then the carpus is migrated proximally or laterally. Indicators of instability: the articular step more than 2 mm and greater than of 10 degrees of volar tilt, greater than of 10 degrees of radial inclination, loss of radial height, comminution of one cortex, comminution of both dorsal palmar cortices, irreducible fracture, loss of reduction after closed reduction. Classification: there are various named fractures. It will be Colles fracture, Smith fracture, Barton's fracture, Schaffer's fracture, dye punch fracture. Colles fracture is an extra-articular fracture occur in the cortico-cancellous junction of the distal radius with 2 mm of 2 cm away from the articular surface. The distal fragment is usually displaced dorsally. It may be extended to the distal radioulnar joint with 6 displacements: impaction, lateral displacement, lateral rotation, dorsal displacement, dorsal rotation, and supination. This often will be accompanied by ulnar styloid injury which signifies the TFCC and ulnar collateral ligament injury. Smith fracture is a reverse Colles fracture which occurs at the same level of Colles fracture. The distal fragment would be displaced volarly. The deformity is called as Gordon-Spey deformity. Barton's fracture, the intra-articular fracture dislocation or subluxation in which the rim of the distal radius dorsally or volarly is displaced with the carpus. There are 2 types, dorsal and volar Barton. Schaffer's fracture is an isolated radial styloid fracture. Die punch injury, it is an intra-articular fracture in which the scaphoid is impacted on the articular surface of the radius. Ideal classification should describe the type of injury, severity, evaluation, and to plan the treatment and the prognosis after treatment. Common classification are Garland-Weary classification, Frickman's, Yeo classification, Milon, Fernandez classification. In Garland-Weary classification, it will be a simple Colles fracture, comminuted Colles fracture with intra-articular extension without displacement, and the comminuted Colles fracture with intra-articular extension with displacement and extra-articular undisplaced. Frickman's classification is based on the involvement of articular surface of the radiocarpal joint and the involvement of annular styloid. Milon classification, it will be characterized or divided based on volar fragment, radial styloid, dorsal rim, and distal radioulnar joint involvement. Fernandez has classified this according to the forces acting on the distal and radius. Goal of the treatment, preserve the hand and wrist function to retain the normal anatomy, to promote bone healing, avoid complication and early mobilization. Options of treatment will be casting, external fixation, percutaneous pinning, and open reduction internal fixation. Indication for close treatment should be a low energy fracture, low demanding patient with medical comorbidities, minimal displacement. Techniques of close reduction after giving a hematoma block or intravenous sedation. Traction is given along the line of deformity and the dorsal angulation is corrected and POP cast is applied. Post-reduction management, the X-ray should be taken immediately after the cast application and should be found that it is satisfactorily reduced. If any embarrassment of split and the cast along the dorsum of the entire length, evaluation of the arm and finger pointing towards the ceiling for first 48 hours. X-ray should be again obtained on first week, then on 15th day, and check for the position. Complication will be the loss of reduction, skin complication, tendon adhesions and entrapment, carpal tunnel syndrome, nerve complication, vascular injury. Indication for surgical treatment, usually high energy treatment with instability, comminuted fracture, open injury, reduced radial inclination, articular step up more than 2 mm, reduced dorsal tilt, and distal radioulnar joint incongruity. Percutaneous pinning technique. The close reduction is achieved once the patient is anesthetized, then the reduction is fixed with KOS. After treatment, the arm will be immobilized in a cast and the series of X-ray should be taken at first week and after 2 weeks and after 6 weeks. The cast is removed and the pin should be removed and the rehabilitation protocol will be started. Tappanji technique is a close reduction and it is an intrafocal pinning where the K wire is inserted through the fracture line and is aligned and fixed. External fixator, there are 2 types. There is a spanning external fixator and non-spanning external fixator. External fixators reduce the fracture and keep it in place by the mechanism of ligamentotaxis. Additionally, along with external fixator, the fracture can be reduced and fixed with KYS. Complication will be the pin tract infection and regional dystrophies, loss of reduction and tendon rupture. Open reduction internal fixation. Open reduction of the articular fracture of the distal radius is indicated in active patient with good bone quality when anatomic restoration of the joint surface cannot be achieved by close reduction, manipulation and pinning technique. Dorsal plating. The internal fixation using the dorsal plates have several theoretical advantages. Technically, most surgeons, the approach is avoided this approach because of the complication such as the tendon rupture, but nowadays the availability of the thin plates has compromised all those things. The incision is made over the distal tubercle and the fracture fragment is identified and it is reduced and the plate is applied over the dorsal aspect. Complication will be, as I said before, there will be tendon irritation, synovitis, tendon rupture. Volar plating, regardless of the displacement of the fragment, both volar or radial, this can be fixed by a volar plating. The palmar plating is approached through a flexor, either on the side of flexor carpi radialis, and the neurovascular bundle is retracted and the fracture fragment is reached and it is reduced and fixed with the volar plate. The advantages of volar plating is the anatomical reduction of the volar cortex, avoiding of any dorsal structures injury. Because the volar compartment of the wrist, the greater cross section space, the implant is separated from the tendons. And the use of fixed angular volar plate design, the distal thus reduces the fragment in the anatomical position and to regain the dorsal tilt. Complication will be the penetration of the screw to the dorsal aspect, collapse of the fracture due to osteopenic patient, and extensor tendon problem. Chronic regional pain syndrome, non-unions are the most common complication. Non-union is rare complication, and the chronic regional pain syndrome is the most common late complication of a distal radius fracture. Malunion, nerve injuries, tendon rupture, and loss of movement.